Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Yeah, I like strawberry Twizzlers. Strawberry. Hello and welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC podcast network. And I'm your host, Howard Fletcher. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the show, I'm an acquired taste. Please stay with me for a while. I guarantee you're going to find something that'll keep you coming back. And if you're a veteran of us, of the GSMC TVP, thank you for coming back. We would not be here if it was not for you. We really appreciate it. Keep coming back. I have a big jam-packed show for you today. There is some backlash from the people featured in the popular Netflix, can't say that fast, documentary Tiger King. Something new from Fran Drescher. She is a surprise for you too. And Dick M. Effin Wolf is balling out of control. And I will share my predictions of episode 4 of this third season of Westworld on HBO. And as always, I'll cut in with breaking news. And I have some right now. Here's some breaking news. Some of the streaming ratings are in for the coronavirus. And I don't think you're going to be surprised by what it shows. During the coronavirus pandemic, Americans are staying home. And as you would expect, they're streaming more now than ever. U.S. consumers' viewing of streaming has continued to increase throughout March. Over the first 3 weeks of March 2020, the total estimated number of minutes streamed to television was 400 billion, with a B. Billion. That's up 85% compared to the comparable 3-week period in 2019, according to a Nielsen rating analysis. Now, that shouldn't be surprising. Well, 85% is rather shocking. But, you know, we have had pretty full employment. And, you know, March is not prime vacation season. You know, some people are on spring break there. But, you know, even on spring break, you're not watching television. So, for the most part, everybody seems to be watching television. That's crazy. And during the week of March 16th, consumers watched about 156.1 billion, with a B, minutes of streaming content on television, up 22% from the week prior and 2.5 times the comparable week of the year prior. So during that mid-March week, when pretty much everybody was being told to socially distance and things started getting very serious, I mean, my birthday is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And I went out that weekend before with my girlfriend, didn't do anything, you know, in a big crowd, but, you know, we did, you know, have a little dinner and all of that. And that's and you know, we don't live together. And so that's the last I have seen of her, because I live in Maryland. She's in Virginia. And, you know, it's a long story. You don't need to know about my life, but, you know, I've been socially distanced ever since. And so if this reflects my life, I'd like to believe that I'm not watching 85% more television than I was this time last year. You know, I do a television podcast and I do enjoy television. I just don't want to think that I'm spending that much of my life watching it, but I have watched a lot, and it was around mid-March that things started to radically change. In addition, amid higher TV viewing overall, Streaming video services have steadily increased their share of time spent viewing on televisions, increasing over the past 4 weeks, Nielsen found. For the week of March 16th, internet streamers captured 23% of all viewing being done on TVs, compared with 16% during the same week a year ago. Note that Nielsen is reporting just streaming to television. The analysis doesn't measure mobile or PC video streaming, so the total amount of online video that U.S. consumers are watching is even higher. So as I predicted on this show, along with some other folks, but I predicted it without hearing that other input, because this was at the end of February. As I predicted, streaming services were going to take off. That was going to be one of the things that was going to be a side effect, one of the results of this pandemic. I didn't even foresee stay-at-home orders or heavy-duty quarantining. I just thought that people were going to be less social because they didn't want to interact. But I had no idea that they were going to have the type of stipulations that they have now out. But of course, I didn't foresee it being as serious as it is, even though it was that way in China. I guess I watched too many White House briefings. Netflix has the biggest share of video streaming on television among the services Nielsen measures, representing 23% of all streaming minutes viewed for the week of March 16th. That's followed by YouTube at 20%, Hulu at 10%, and Amazon Prime Video at 9%. That's very interesting. I would have thought that Amazon Prime might beat out Hulu at least, because a lot of people have Prime because they want the delivery service and the video is just something that is an add-on. But I'm wrong. Nielsen pointed out that the quote-unquote other category has seen even a bigger rise for the most recent week measured. That bucket includes Disney Plus, which is not reported out by Nielsen currently. I guess that's because it's a reasonably new entry into the field. And the research firm speculated that the Mouse House's streaming service is seeing a significant lift from kids staying home from school, along with, and I've talked about this on this show before, Frozen 2 dropping 3 months early on Disney Plus. I knew that was going to happen, and I said so on this show. And some breaking news to finish the segment. Schitt's Creek, another show that I've never watched, but it's on my, my backlog. Like I said, I can't watch everything, but many of my friends whose tastes are much like mine say you got to watch this show. Its finale is coming up on April 7th. And I'm going to read this little blurb out of Variety. Actually, it's a long article. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Schitt's Creek retires as a striking emblem of the transitional period in television when streaming services are upending the business with their deluge of content, refusal to report clear viewership tallies, and gargantuan budgets. In this environment, ad-supported cable networks, Pop among them, are under increasing pressure to justify their existence. Now, Pop is the network that it now carries Schitt's Creek. Indeed, at the end of February, Pop underwent layoffs as a part of the consolidation of Viacom CBS, followed by a decision in early March to axe 3 of its scripted shows. The economic calamity caused by a coronavirus pandemic will surely increase basic cable's burdens. Yet Schitt's Creek did break through and will likely enter the pantheon of classic comedies. Its ratings have risen every season, and according to Pop, that's again the network that carries it, 3.7 million viewers are watching season 6 episodes when you count live and delayed viewing of multiple telecasts, and the channel's digital platforms are up 60% over last season. Pop used Schitt's Creek to launch its other remaining scripted show on March 24th, One Day at a Time, which its channel rescued after Netflix canceled it. Despite Netflix being basic cable's biggest threat, it was Pop's deal with the streaming service in 2017 that brought a whole new audience to Schitt's Creek. The Netflix effect was enormous and immediate, Eugene Levy says. Eugene Levy is one of the stars of the show. You could feel it wherever you went, on the street or at the airport, in a restaurant. More people were coming up and saying, love the show. Though Netflix would not comment for this story, a recent Nielsen streaming report obtained by Variety revealed that in the first week of March, Schitt's Creek was the second most watched acquisition by Netflix, behind only The Office. So it looks like I have some work to do during this time when we're all locked in, and I probably will check out Schitt's Creek and get back with you. When I have Valerie back on the show, we're going to talk about two things because she's the other person who likes Schitt's Creek. We'll talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Schitt's Creek, two shows that she says I need to watch. Well, next, yeah, that's right. I'm going to talk about Tiger King, and we're going to discuss the backlash from some of the people from the show, why they are just so upset at how they were portrayed. You know, I know I don't want people filming my life, and I probably would be a bit upset if they showed it on Netflix. But then again, I wouldn't be getting bullet holes tattooed to my body. Anyway, my name's Howard Fletcher. Go get something to drink because you're going to need it for the next segment. I'll be right back.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Okay, test. Yeah, the scheme was good. You gotta watch it. All right, I am back, and as I said last segment, I thought I was going to close the door on this, but it's just too wild, too hot. We're going to talk a little bit more about Tiger King. Now, when you come out with a series like this that shows so many different scandalous things, especially about people, you imagine there's going to be some backlash. Somebody's not going to be happy. So what I did is I did a little research on the internet. So I've called some stuff from different websites, wrote some stuff myself, and that's what I'm going to go over now. Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness is, well, it's pretty much the talk of the world right now. The true crime series debuted on March 20th, while many were in the throes of social distancing, and it's become the subject of countless memes, YouTube videos, and late-night news shows. You cannot escape Tiger King. The 7-part series followed Joe Exotic.
Yes.
A gay polygamist, one-time presidential candidate, one-time gubernatorial candidate. He's the owner of hundreds of big cats and other exotic animals, and his battle with Carol Baskin. She's an animal activist and the owner of a big cat sanctuary. Their very colorful social media feuding turned into court battles that gave way to Joe's arrest and a murder-for-hire plot. Now, Carol speaking out against the Netflix series, and Joe, well, Joe being Joe, is reveling in all the attention from prison.
Yes.
Here's a quote I found on a website. Joe has called me quite a few times over the last few days and weeks. One, he's absolutely ecstatic about the series and the idea of being famous. He's absolutely thrilled. I think he's trying to be an advocate for, no surprise, criminal justice reform. Tiger King co-director Eric Good told the LA Times. He is in a cage, and of course he's going to say that now he recognizes what he did to these animals. With Joe, we have empathy for him, but at the same time, he's somebody who really knows what to say at the right moment.
Yes.
I take it with a grain of salt when he says he is now apologetic for keeping the animals, end quote. And that's somebody who was with Joe for about 5 years. Now, Rebecca Chalkin, who was the co-director. This documentary series was directed by two people. Rebecca says, you can hardly talk to Joe without him mentioning the amount of press he's getting. Now dig this. He says people are asking to see his Prince Albert, which I didn't know what one was. I had to look it up on Wikipedia. I guess I'm not hip to the piercing arts. And girls are sending him sexy bikini pictures even though he's gay. He's over the moon.
Yes.
Having kept in pretty close touch with him while he's been in a horrible county prison, this has raised his spirits. Joe definitely did some horrible things to those animals. He was very abusive to them, and he shot 5 tigers, no question about it. But what has happened to him has also been hard, Chalkin said. Well, it's interesting she writes that or said that because they did mention about the 5 tigers he shot. That, as a matter of fact, those were one of the charges that were brought up against him when he got arrested. But they didn't really show him abusing the animals that much, nor did they talk about it that much if that was the case. They did mention how he bred them, prolifically, and he, kept them in pens. That was obvious. Although they did seem to be pretty well spread out. But if he was very abusive to him, as she said, well, they should have shown that more, and they really didn't. Anyway, meanwhile, Carol, she's not happy. In a lengthy post on her website, as well as a YouTube video with her husband, Howard Baskin, Carol Baskin has decried the series and refuted several aspects of it, noting that they were told that it was going to be the Blackfish of Big Cats, which was the documentary about the killer whales at Marineland or wherever. Her post touched on a number of topics, including the disappearance of her husband, Don Lewis, a very mysterious disappearing, I would add, the refuted claims by those interviewed in the episode about his disappearance. This is what she said. Quote, well, this is what Chalkin said, the director. I would say that we were completely forthright with the characters. With any project that goes on for 5 years, things evolve and change, and we followed it as any good storyteller does. We could have never known when we started this project it was going to land where it did, Chalkin said. Well, I can bet that because I couldn't believe it as I was watching it, that it landed where it landed. Carol talked about her personal life, her childhood, abuse from her first and second husband, the disappearance of her ex, Don Lewis. She knew that this was not a Blackfish movie because of the things she spoke about. She certainly wasn't coerced. The other thing I would say about all these people is there was a lack of intellectual curiosity to really go and understand or even see these animals in the wild. Good said. This is from the other director. Certainly Carol really had no interest in seeing an animal in the wild. The lack of education, frankly, was really interesting. How they had built their own little utopias and really were only interested in that world and the rules that they had created. Well, on retrospect, and I didn't go back, I'm not probably going to see this thing again. I don't know if I can live through it again, but one of the things I did when I had time to sit down and think about it, it was one of the things that I thought was very interesting about what the filmmakers did with Tiger King, because I really did get a sense that we got to see what type of individuals would really develop or want to live like this. They were only interested in their little utopias. And Carol, in my assessment, not being a mammologist or an ethologist, I would say that what she was calling an animal preserve was a zoo, almost just like Joe's, except for Joe was doing breeding and Joe was doing more of the petting thing, and she didn't seem to pet the animals whatsoever. She kept them in pens. So it was very interesting character study of people that, almost like the character study for me, I'm not a hunter, of people that hunt and rationalize hunting with high-powered rifles and decoys and all those types of things and calling it a sport. I think the filmmakers did a great job of showing what type of psychology and even anthropology goes into people that decide that they are going to pen up animals and call it something good. I thought it was very interesting in that respect. Other than that, and I don't want to go on and repeat my same rant, but when I tell people about Tiger King, I do tell them that, look, this is a study in what it's like to live in a part of the country or parts of the country and be of a certain demographic and be able to get away with things that just aren't within the norm. My last show, and I will revise what I said. I mentioned that. And well, I'll revise it. I'm not going to change it. I'll revise it. I did say that, this only certain people of certain demographics, specifically white males, would be able to get away with this type of behavior in the United States for this long a period of time without being called to task for it or arrested as they ultimately were. But I'll also add the location had something to do with it too, because, if you lived in a more urban area or even some areas on the East Coast, I think other than Florida, anything will go on in Florida. I think it would be very difficult to have this type of preserve, say in New York or in Maryland or in the D.C. area where I live. It just wouldn't be able to be done. However, I will not change my opinion about if this were Ving Rhames doing this in Georgia, whether this would even have gone on for a day. I'll give it a strong month before that brother is behind bars and everybody associated with him. So there you have it. I revisited Tiger King. I still give it on my food scale. I'll stay with the same food. On my 5-point food scale, I still give it 4.5 buckets of movie popcorn. I think it was very well done. I don't want to watch it again because I just don't like the subject matter, but it was very well done. It was very entertaining, very easy to binge, almost hard not to binge because every half hour, every 30 minutes of it, something else happened where I was saying expletives that I'm not going to say on this show. And, it was good. It was good. You know, I don't know if it's going to get nominated for any awards, but it was very entertaining. Next, I'm going to go over some breaking news from the one and only Fran Drescher. You know what it's going to be about. How many things can I talk about with Fran Drescher? And I'm going to talk about the baller who is out of control, Mr. Dick M.F. Wolf. Hang on. I'll be right back. Go get a beer.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
No, I don't want that. Okay, I am back. And, you know, I say it so much on this show that I should make it the name of the podcast. You can't watch everything. And I haven't watched everything, no time. But another show that I never watched was The Nanny with Fran Drescher. Well, you know, you probably will tell if you listen to the show enough, and I hope you do, that I don't really watch a whole lot of sitcoms of late. I used to watch them when I was much younger. I was a big fan of Veep, but there are not many sitcoms that I watch on a regular basis, and I certainly didn't watch The Nanny. But I saw this little article in Variety, and I just thought you might find it interesting. I did, because I don't understand why they're doing this. But The Nanny creator, star Fran Drescher, teased on her Twitter page last week in response to a fan who wanted to watch the popular 90s sitcom online that there was a surprise in the works. Well, the announcement was not that the CBS show's 6-season catalog, there you go, it ran 6 seasons, who'd have thunk it, would be coming to one of the soon-to-be-launched streaming services like HBO Max or the Peacock, as some anticipated. I don't know who was out there on the edge of their seats wondering who's going to carry The Nanny, but I guess some people were. Or that there would be a revival of the series. None of those were the surprise. And the series centers on a cosmetics saleswoman who is hired from her job at a bridal shop and becomes the caretaker to a Broadway producer's 3 children. There is definitely an art to the pitch of a show. Variety has learned that the original cast of the Sony Pictures television produced show is reuniting for a virtual table read of the pilot via Zoom. Zoom is blowing up over this pandemic. that this has been the best thing that could happen to Zoom is that everybody's locked at home. It'll be posted on the Sony Pictures website, YouTube page, on the morning of April 6th. I don't know why they didn't do it today. I'm recording this on April Fool's Day, but trust me, this is real. I'm not fooling you. So on April 6th, all you nanny fans go to YouTube and there will be a table read of the pilot, and that will help you kill probably about 45 minutes or so of your day. Here's some more breaking news. This is big. For someone like me, this is big. This is from the mind of my man, Dick Wolf. Okay. Chris Maloney, he is bringing his Law & Order SVU character back to television. I also got this from Variety, so I guess they confirmed with their sources that Maloney will star as Elliot Stabler once again in a new NBC series that hails from the Law & Order mastermind, Dick Wolf. The show has received a 13-episode order at the broadcaster. Universal, they love Dick Wolf. The show will reportedly follow Stabler as he heads up the organized crime division of the NWPD. Wolf will executive produce, so you're going to get that black screen at the end that says Dick Wolf at the end. That just makes my day every episode. Universal Television, where, dig this, Wolf recently signed a massive new overall deal. They'll be the producers. The overall production company will be Universal Television. That apparently is just enthralled by Dick Wolf. The series brings Maloney back into the world of the Dick Wolf fold for the first time since he left SVU in the show's 12th season back in 2011. Jeez, it's been almost 10 years. Maloney departed the show at the end of season 12, so it was written into the season 13 premiere that Stabler had retired from the police force. Maloney, who is also well known for his role on the HBO drama Oz, which that's like a honorable mention on my HBO shows, has starred in a number of projects since leaving SVU. He was on Happy, on Sci-Fi, and Underground on WGN. He was also on Veep. He played a little role there. I enjoyed him on that. He was on episodes of Pose. Wouldn't have seen him there. And he's been in The Handmaid's Tale, which I only watched the first season, so I don't think he was on the first season. Wolf's new 5-year deal at Universal TV is said to be worth, if I had a drum to roll, I would roll it, but I don't have one, 9 figures. Okay? And that dude is unbelievable. He got hundreds of millions of dollars. As a part of the deal, SVU received a 3-season renewal, 3 more seasons, as did all 3 of the Chicago shows. That's his latest hustle. And the pact between Wolf and NBC Universal reportedly also included multiple series commitments, with the Stabler series being the first of the new shows to come out on that deal. So Dick Wolf is the man as far as Universal is concerned. So, okay, obviously this Law & Order franchise is going to continue. So I was trying to think what Law & Order shows would I like to see, because I am a fan of Law & Order. I don't watch it too much anymore because I've seen them all. I was like, what new Law & Order shows would I like to see? And if he's bringing back Maloney, why don't he bring back some other people? And so these are some of the shows that I would pitch to Dick Wolf and that I would think he might want to consider. First, Law & Order AARP. Yeah. Original detectives, George Zunza, I never knew how to pronounce his name, and Paul Sorvino go undercover to ferret out nursing home abuse and reverse mortgage scams. Might be a winner. I think people would tune in just to see Paul Sorvino. The next one is Law & Order Afterlife. The ghost of Jerry Orbach. Now, they do this in CGI, and this ghostly hologramish figure, they're going to use some of his audio from his old shows. They'll paste it together, or maybe they'll find some guy who can do a good Jerry Orbach imitation, but I'd rather hear Jerry's original voice. He partners with Ice-T. And Ice-T is now a private detective, and they investigate crimes that can only be explained by supernatural activity or the occult. Ice-T will probably get his first Emmy on that one, I believe. Number 3 would be Law and Order MILF Squad. Yeah, thought you might like that one. This one would have Jill Hennessy, Angie Harmon, Julianne Nicholson, and Annabella Scoria. I can never say her names. You saw her on The Sopranos and Jungle Fever. They team up. They all used to be detectives on the show in one incarnation or the other. They team up to take out sex offenders outside of the system using their own brand of justice. I think Dick might go for that one. Last but not least, Law and Order Bad Seed. I think you're going to like this one. Vincent D'Onofrio. You remember he used to be on that show Criminal Intent. I think I had like about a 5-year run. He played a detective called Robert Gorin. Gorin was kind of weird. Well, Gorin snaps after tracking down a serial cannibal called Chewy. And he takes on, after he has this break, he takes on this super vigilante persona. I haven't come up with a name for that guy yet. I think the writers might do a better job than I will. And he canvasses the city as an outlaw to murder felons who were wrongfully acquitted in court. And those would be the 4 shows that I would pitch to Dick Wolf. And I think Dick Wolf can get at least one out of that. So, Dick, if you are listening, I want you to take one of those ideas. Please remember that you got them from me. And I know you can put your Midas touch on it along with your formulaic writing team and get all of those out of work Broadway actors or up and comers to cast, to be on each show. I think you have a hit on your hands. And I could get my name after yours at the end, after the cling cling thing. So what do you think? Please write me at podcasttower@gmail.com. Let me know your ideas. Let me know what you think about my ideas, and we'll figure something out, Who knows? Maybe this podcast can evolve into someplace where I pitch shows and I make some money. Next, I lied. I'm not going to close the door on Tiger King. I found out what some of those people who are in Tiger King are doing now, and I'm going to share that with you right after this. Go get a drink. Don't go away.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay. All right. It's back. We're back. And I lied, and I apologize to you guys. I can't stop talking about Tiger King. Well, it's not that I can't stop talking about it. It's that I find these things I think are interesting, and I'd like to share them with you because I think you'd find them interesting too. I found a couple of sources that says where those folks are now who were the stars of the Netflix documentary, if that's what you want to call it. So if you can't stop thinking about Joe and Carol and Doc and all those people, here's an update on what they're doing now. I'm going to start with Joe Finlay. Now that's Joe's ex-husband, his first husband, who was also having relationships with several women at the park. He ended his marriage with Joe Exotic in 2014. He has since fixed his teeth because those teeth were jacked up, dude. I mean, I'm so glad that he has fixed those things. Because I had a hard time watching him when he was talking. I don't know about you guys. He's working as a welder and living with his fiancée, Stormy, the woman you saw him leave with, or we briefly saw her in the documentary. Now, I saw in 2 articles that they said he started a Facebook page. I could not find it, so I can't give it to you, but if you know how to search Facebook better than I can, you might find it. Apparently, he made a Facebook page to counter what he didn't like about the Tiger King series. He's particularly steamed that the filmmakers chose not to show him with his new chiclets because I guess they said, take those teeth out of your mouth. We want to see what you look like as a hillbilly. And he looked bad. Here's some things you don't know about John. After Joe had John arrested for assault, thus ending their relationship, he returned sometime later to manage Joe's Safari Bar, which was down the road from the zoo. And John helped Joe when he was distraught after the accidental shooting of his other husband, Travis Maldonado. And now about Carol Baskin. Well, she was Joe's chief nemesis on the show, as you remember, on the documentary, in real life. Now, Carol released a statement, Carol Baskin, after Tiger King premiered, calling it salacious and sensational. Why do you think people watched it? It's because it's salacious and sensational. Yeah, true. The lengthy statement goes on to refute the series' insinuation that she may have been involved in the death of her husband, Don Lewis, who disappeared without a trace. Well, I guess anyone would deny that if they could. Her household only had a small meat grinder, she said, while the Netflix documentary showed a photo of a much larger one that could have more credibly ground up Lewis. Okay, well, that's true. That would be a little misleading if that one they showed was not her actual meat grinder. Now 58, she continues to live with her third husband, Howard Baskin, at the Big Cat Rescue Facility near Tampa, Florida, and advocates to stop breeding big cats and keeping them in captivity. The facility is currently closed due to coronavirus, but you can see the cats on Instagram. Here's some things you didn't know about Carol. She got married for the first time when she was just 17 and had a daughter, Jamie, who also works at Big Cat Rescue. All right, here's something about Doc Antle. You know, his name is Bhagavan, which means Lord, I guess. I don't know. Owner of the Institute of Greatly Endangered and Rare Species, otherwise known as Tigers, of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, he released a statement saying that he was disappointed in the series and accused the producers of paying participants. Well, yeah, they probably did pay him. Doesn't mean they were lying. The safari remains open despite the coronavirus crisis. Well, Doc Antle doesn't give an F anyway. It was obvious. 2 of Antle's children, Cody and Tawny, he's the only one I know who would name his kid Tawny, a girl. Oh, man, probably the same name as the mother. They both work at the Institute. What you didn't know about Doc Antle, he is 60 years old. He's a former animal trainer. He was called Kevin at school, though, probably because that's what his parents called him. And he trained as a doctor in China. A fact the Chinese probably refute now. Rick Kirkman, he was the producer who was shooting Joe Exotic's reality TV web series. He started out as a crime reporter and began to smoke crack while appearing on Inside Edition. Well, he looked like he had been through something. He now lives in Bodo, Norway, where he feasts on reindeer stew with his new wife and is working on a documentary project about a man with an exciting double life, according to his Facebook post. See, you can't make this kind of stuff up, man. Dude eats reindeer. Reindeer, dude. Things you didn't know about Rick Kirkman is that after all the footage from his Joe Exotic shoots burned in a suspicious fire at the zoo, he moved to Dallas, where his own house coincidentally burned down just 6 months later, according to a New York Magazine article by Robert Moore. So let me guess. He took that insurance money and moved to Norway, where he now chows down on reindeer. This has Tiger King 2 all over it. Joe Exotic, the central character of the whole thing that it's named after, he is serving a 22-year sentence in the Oklahoma Grady County Jail after being convicted of 17 counts of animal abuse and 2 counts of murder for hire. How do you just do time in county jail for murder for hire? Why isn't he in the Oklahoma State Pen? I'm going to put that down again on the list of things that happened to Joe Exotic that wouldn't happen to him if he was in a different demographic. But being incarcerated didn't stop the 57-year-old former zoo owner from filing a $94 million lawsuit on March 17th, 3 days before the series dropped, against the federal government and Jeff Lowe, who took over the GW Zoo from Joe. Now, you all remember Jeff Lowe. He was the swinger guy who went to Vegas and got busted for bringing tigers into his suite. According to Rolling Stone, he alleged that the government contributed to the death of his mother and that Jeff Lowe provided false statements to the feds. Okay, I have no doubt that Jeff Lowe provided false statements to the feds because everyone was lying in this thing. But I don't know how the government contributed to the death of his mother, but I guess his mother, was pretty distraught because he got busted. Well, this article had things you didn't know about Joe Exotic, but I've told you last show. Though he appeared in a number of country music videos, Joe Exotic is actually lip-syncing to music from the Clinton Johnson Band. And according to Robert Moore, who was the writer who wrote the story, where we got the information about Kirkman, the producer, who's crack-smoking producer who eats reindeer, Joe uses a cane. Hold on, let me find this now. A crutch as a result of a car accident in 1985 in which he says he was attempting suicide. Here's some of the other people in the series. Couldn't find out as much about them, but there's some information. Kelsey Safari, that's the person who lost part of an arm and returned to work very soon after, I think less than 2 weeks, prefers to be called Saf and uses the him and his pronouns. So I guess Kelsey is in the trans community. He did look a little, I did question that, but I guess that's why this is in there. They don't say that, but I guess you wouldn't have that information if that wasn't the case. The Hawaii native is reportedly still working at the zoo. So Sav is still feeding the tigers and the lions. And last but not least, Jeff Lowe, the swinger who took the zoo from Joe Exotic. He's still running the Greater Wynwood Zoo. And and how he's not busted, how he's not in jail again is beyond me. This guy, everyone called him a con man, but yet he's taking care of the zoo. Still with his wife Lauren there. He's had at least one more daughter since the series filmed. He's planning to open a new zoo in Oklahoma in hopes of starting fresh. And again, how dude is not in jail right next to Joe Exotic, I do not know. And if Jeff Lowe looked a little bit more like Ving Rhames, I doubt he would see the light of day. But, I'm not going to hate the player as far as it's concerned. I'm not trying to get Jeff Lowe locked up. I just scratch my head at the fact that he is not. Or any of these people are, But, I guess his zoo is probably going to go gangbusters now since this thing came out. And so while Joe Exotic is still in prison, it looks like everyone else is probably going to profit off of this thing. So that's it for my update this time on Tiger King. And I won't make a promise I can't keep. That's just all the information I have for now. I might tell you more later. Next, here's some more breaking news. And then my last segment will be my predictions for Westworld Season 3, Episode 4. Don't go away.
Oh, hell no!
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the backdoors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Yeah, I don't want that walnut. Okay. All right. I am back. And now I'm going to start off with some more breaking news. Showtime has joined almost every other network in being forced to make scheduling changes due to the coronavirus pandemic, which has caused widespread production shutdowns across the globe. Now, they just announced that season 2 of Black Monday, which is currently airing, it's already had, I think, 2 episodes, and season 5 of Billions, it'll be interrupted mid-flow. So Black Monday, and for those of you who haven't watched the show, again, it's not a show I've watched. It's on my queue. I just don't have time to watch everything. It's about, back in October 19th of 1987, for those of you who weren't alive then. It's known as Black Monday. It was the worst stock market crash in Wall Street history. And so, there's this is a take on one of the possible ways that happened. It has my boy Don Cheadle in it. Looks very good. Anyway, it's going to air up to episode 6, and that's going to air on April 12th. So I guess they got April 12th. They probably have aired 3 episodes up to now. And at which point it will go on hiatus. And returning with its last 4 episodes at an undetermined point later this year. I guess whenever we can all leave our homes. Likewise, Billions, which is a show I do watch and I enjoy quite a lot because of my boy Paul Giamatti. That was a bad Paul Giamatti. Won't do that again. It's still on track to premiere May 3rd, and it's going to air 7 episodes before going off the air, just like Black Monday did, for an undecided length of time. Black Monday had completed shooting, but was still in post-production when the shutdown took effect, according to sources. But Billions was still in the process of shooting. In addition, the season 3 premiere of The Chi, which is a show that I watched the first season of, I couldn't get into the second season. I can get into that later. It had a scene that I just really objected to. Was moved to Sunday, June 21st to help plug the content gap. The whole season 3 will air without interruption. Fortunately for Penny Dreadful fans, another show I did watch, I thought it kind of went off the rails at the end. They're going to come back with a different take on it. It's called Penny Dreadful City of Angels. I think it's going to be just like a mini series that has some spooky stuff in it. That show is still scheduled to begin airing on Sunday, April 26th. Penny Dreadful City of Angels has my girl Natalie Dormer in it.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm going to watch it.
I do.
I have loved her ever since The Tudors, where she played Anne Boleyn. I think she did a real good job. She was good in Game of Thrones too, but she was excellent in The Tudors. And there's more breaking news, ratings-wise, has to do with my boy Dick M.F. Wolf. On Tuesday night this past week, CBS was the only English language network to air a full night of original episodes, and they dominated the primetime ratings. The FBI set season highs in both total viewers, 10.81 million, and it also topped the demographic score, and I'm not going to get into that, but they got the money, people 18 to 49 watching. The episode also featured a relatively rare cross-network crossover as Tracy, here I go, Spiridakos, yay, guest starred as her Chicago PD character, and both shows are produced by Dick Wolf. So I want you to understand how much of a boss move this was. Dick Wolf took a character from an NBC show and put it on his CBS show for a guest spot. You can only do that if you are a boss dog baller, which Dick Wolf is. And FBI Most Wanted, his other CBS show, had its second best numbers of the season, trailing only last week's show when they did the crossover with the regular FBI show. So Dick did a crossover, lead into FBI, and followed up with another show. He is out of control. I just admire people who understand the genre and just take it over like Dick Wolf has, similar to what Aaron Spelling did with the primetime soap opera. So Dick Wolf gets all kinds of props from me today on this one. Also, just a note that I think you might find interesting. They had a repeat of Ellen's Game of Games that drew 4.82 million viewers, which was on par with its same-day average for the original episode this season. So the same number of people watch the repeat of the same show. So I'm not sure if that means that because everyone's locked in, people who haven't watched it before watched it and she actually grew her audience, or people are just so stuck on Ellen that they watched the show again. It probably means neither of those things, but Ellen is another person who I admire because she understands her genre and she has taken it over as well. So props to you, Ellen DeGeneres. Okay, and this last bit of breaking news, I thought this was kind of interesting. There was another article that was in Variety. Let me get, you might hear me in the show. You do hear me on the show, often referred to Variety, Collider, and the Hollywood Reporter, because I get emails all day long from them updating me on different things about the entertainment industry. I think they have the reporters that are really just on top of things. As you heard with the Showtime story we led with on this segment, many networks are having to cancel shows because they had to shut down production because of the coronavirus outbreak. But there's one corner of television where the coronavirus situation, COVID-19, is probably not going to affect too much in the short run. And that is the basic cable reality show. Now, when I say basic cable, I'm talking about HGTV, TLC, Bravo, ID, Food Network, Discovery, E! Television, History, A&E, all of those shows, those reality type shows that are on those networks, they take those way, way, way in advance. Not like, say, The Bachelor or even a Survivor or some of the things that are on the broadcast commercial networks. These basic cable channels really load up a pretty big inventory of these episodes. So Discovery's chief brand officer, Nancy Daniels, she oversees Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, and Science Channel. And she says that with a show like a staple that's on her Discovery Channel, Deadliest Catch, they have an entire 26 episode season that is shot and ready to go. So they have half a year's worth of programming that they can run with without having to even start up production, which I think is interesting because with the correct marketing, and I'm a marketing guy, that's why I admire Dick Wolf and Ellen DeGeneres. With the right type of marketing and promotion, it might be an opportunity for these channels that are second tier, even third and fourth tier channels in some people's views, to come out with this new programming and say, look, these either they're not running the new season of the show you've been waiting for, or they're running repeats of a show you've already seen. So maybe this is a time for you to check out Deadliest Catch, or Bring It, or Save My Life, Boston Trauma, or The Real Housewives of Cheshire, or Wags, or Dash Dolls, or Below Deck Mediterranean, or Wags Miami, or Wags Atlanta, or Dr. Pimple Popper, or This Is Hot 97, or Chrisley Knows Best, or The Gossip Game, or Pretty Wicked Moms, or Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, or The Real Housewives of Vancouver, or New York Med, or as in my case, Love is Blind, or The Circle, or X on the Beach, or Are You the One, or Hoarders, or Bringing Up Bates, or 3 a.m. My bad. 3 a.m. was canceled. It was the brainchild of Dick Wolf, and here's what it was about. It's the voyeuristic documentary series puts a spotlight on the lives of 5 New York citizens and veterans of the city's nightlife. It bombed. And that's what happens sometimes when you dabble outside of your sweet spot. That show aired and got canceled in one season in 2015. After that, Dick Wolf came on strong with all that Chicago stuff. And then as I told you earlier in the podcast, he got that big contract from Universal this year. See, Dick learned his lesson. Stick with what you know and just max it out. So that's it for the Dick Wolf Hour. That's it for this segment. I will be back with my predictions for Westworld Episode 4, Season 3 after this.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Okay, we are back and ready to start talking about Westworld. This is my favorite part of the show. It's Friday, so this is the day that I do predictions for the next show. This is going to be a prediction, which actually we probably won't find out this next episode, but I'm still trying to figure out who is in Charlotte Hale or what control unit is in Charlotte Hale. So first, I want to kind of review what we do know, and I did a little work myself. Also, I will give credit to Danny Heifetz of TheRinger.com. He did an article, very good article, about who he thought was in Charlotte Hale. So he made 3 assumptions based on what we've learned so far, watching the past 2 seasons and the first 3 episodes. And I'm going to lift those from him because I think he articulated them well. And so since I couldn't do any better, I thought that I would just steal them. So here are the 3 assumptions we're going to work with. 1, it's a character we have seen on the show before. 2, it is not a human being. And 3, Dolores knows this person well enough to trust them based on her words at the beginning of the episode when she said, "I trust you." Now, Dolores doesn't trust many people, making it tough to find characters that fit that criteria. So we can eliminate some. And we can also eliminate some because they've already appeared in the season. We can assume that Bernard, Stubbs, and Maeve are not in Charlotte Hale based on what we know and what we've been shown. Now, people that Dolores probably could trust, but as far as we know, they're unable to be resurrected or we don't have access to their control units, are Teddy, because we saw Teddy get beamed up to the valley beyond, and they haven't explained how Dolores, even though we did find out this episode that she is the encryption key to wherever that information went, we don't know if he's been taken out of there. So Teddy couldn't be Teddy, even though a lot of people think it's Teddy. And Angela, if we've all said she got blown up in the forge last season, I think Angela is somebody else. So I don't go with the thing that Angela is destroyed, but we'll just say for now, it's not Angela who's in Charlotte Hale. People who could be in Charlotte Hale, but I don't think they fit the criteria of someone that Dolores would trust, is Armistice, and that's the blonde with the snake tattoo. She barely knows Dolores, and she's really more loyal to Hector, so it's doubtful that Dolores would team up with her. Hector, who we saw earlier last episode with Maeve, we don't think that even if she had access to Hector, she would put her in Charlotte Hale's body. And Akecheta, who is the Ghost Nation leader from last season, he's in the Valley Beyond as far as we know too. And I don't know whether Dolores would team up with him or not, but I think he will make an appearance this season, but maybe not in Charlotte Hale. So here are the top suspects so far, according to all the internet tinfoil types, and just if you watch the show, these are pretty credible suspects. Peter Abernathy, now that's Dolores' father, and that's the most important person to her. Therefore, he's a logical candidate. His control unit's been damaged since the end of season 1, so that could explain why Charlotte is having such a hard time in her skin. Although she said this last episode she feels like somebody's inside of her trying to get out, who she refers to as a she, so that might not be a good explanation. I just think that Peter Abernathy is too ho-hum a choice. And I think I would, as well as most of the viewership, would be kind of disappointed if it were he. Clementine, who was part of Dolores' crew in the middle of season 2, she has interacted with Dolores. They weren't pals especially while they were on their loops. You know, Dolores was a farmer's daughter, never really interacted with the brothel or with the bar. Clementine became a zombie witch of death, so she was somewhat of a predator, which she mentioned, you know, whoever is in Charlotte Hale's body mentioned being a predator when she was choking out that pedophile. However, barring some sort of wild storytelling from Nolan and Joy, which I don't put past them, but hopefully they won't do that. If it was Clementine, it just seems like that would be a reach. Lawrence is a dark horse here. Outside of Peter, Teddy, Bernard, and Maeve, Lawrence has the closest relationship to Dolores after their train escapade back with young William in season 1. Dolores is leading a revolution, and Lawrence was the leader of a group of revolutionaries when he was El Lazo. So, you know, they have that shared motivation. And aside from his extremely applicable background, there's a thematic symmetry to Lawrence going from being mistreated by William for so much of season 1 and season 2 to being mistreated by Dolores in season 3. So maybe he would become somewhat of that type of foil. I don't know. Some people think it might be William, the Man in Black. I don't think so. I think that's kind of a reach as well. He hasn't appeared in season 3 yet. That's what's leading to the speculation that he might be in Charlotte's body. But I would say that would not make sense for 2 reasons. One is that William was on the beach at the end of season 2. So it would require a lot of extraordinary storytelling by Nolan and Joy again to explain how Dolores got hold of his mind so quickly before leaving the park. It would also be harder to explain why Dolores would even trust him, since he's tried to kill her every single time he could, if not rape her or do more terrible things to her. So here's my grand tinfoil theory as of April 2nd, which is the day when I'm recording this. And this is just what I'm on right now. This is where I am. And I will admit that I put out there that I thought Caleb somehow was in Hale, but that's ridiculous. So I take that back, and I was wrong. This is my tinfoil theory that Robert Ford is in Dolores and Dolores is in Charlotte Hale. Now, I think Dolores is... Robert Ford is the grand architect of all of this. So to subscribe to my theory, you have to believe that Robert Ford planned this out from before Dolores shot him in the head. This is what he saw this whole thing play out, and then he also pulled the strings for it to happen while he was in the big brain in the forge. I know Dolores did not trust Ford before, but he let her shoot him in the head like Arnold did the first time around. So that might have gained her trust. Since he allowed her to reach sentience by that act, maybe she sees that Ford has changed and now they're working together. Also, Ford cares for her. You know, he used her as his way to get the hosts out of the park. As much as he says he loved Maeve, and I understand he said Maeve was his favorite, I still think he has a soft part in his heart for Dolores, and that's why he's having Dolores carry out these very key steps to his plan to, you know, get these humans who I think he sees as a disease out of the way. I believe that red and gray ball on the table that everyone assumes is Bernard. I think that ball is the Man in Black and not Bernard. I think that Bernard control unit that is in him right now, I think was created by Ford at the house when they were outside of the park through his memories and Dolores' memories of Arnold and Bernard. And when we saw them waking him up at the end of season 2, that was them running fidelity tests on what they created in that house. And it was Ford telling him, you're going to try to stop me. You have a role to play. That's your role. Also, when Dolores wakes up in this past episode and she sees that ball and she knows it's the Man in Black, she's like, why do we need him? And he says he has a role to play. And that's why we haven't seen Ed Harris yet, because Ed Harris hasn't been set loose. So that is right where I am now, that Ford is Dolores. Hale has Dolores's control unit in her that's trying to reach sentience again. And that's why she is a predator sometimes, the Wyatt part, and also sometimes the innocent girl. Ford is just getting her up to speed. And I also believe that Martin, the bodyguard for Liam, who we didn't see this last episode, we saw him briefly this last episode, is either Angela or Lawrence. And my money is on Angela because Angela takes care of business. So with that bit of craziness, that ends this episode of the GSMC Television Podcast, part of the mighty GSMC Podcast Network. Please subscribe to us. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. You can do it wherever you listen, but Apple Podcasts would be the best place for you to give us a 5-star rating. We'd really appreciate it. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My name is Howard Fletcher. I look forward to talking to you guys each and every Tuesday and Friday. Please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. Be safe, be clean, wash your hands, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.